Hi, V. So we're back in the Mecca with continuing our guest stars with new guests, and we have Toto today, Georgie, and Toto. How many weeks are we from the Arnold?
We're about 4.5 weeks up.
What do you think about that, Merlin?
I think that this guy, he's been coming up the ranks slowly, making noise, and I think he's going to do well at the Arnold. I mean, I think he's going to have his best showing yet. So
almost won the show last few months, man. So close from qualifying to the Olympia.
I mean, he's ready to go to the Olympia. So today we're going to smash his hamstrings a little bit. I get to do it 4 weeks out, and then we can see what his hams look like 4 weeks out. So I'm looking forward to that. Of course, George
always with us.
Always go together.
That's right. You can't separate Toto and George.
Surrounded by Ifbb pros.
I know, we love that. That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to training with them. And if Silvio ever shows up, then we're going to train with him too.
Well, he better, because that's why we have these guys to push him during the workout. So he has to be there.
Because Silvio's going to compete April 11th in St. Louis, so I want other guys to come in and push him as well. So it should be a fantastic workout. I'm going to hit them with a little ESPX2 training today.
And I had Toto wear shorts so we can actually see sick hamstrings today. I told him make sure to wear shorts today. That's right. All right, thank you so much for being there, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, guys, so here's the first exercise we're doing for hams. With Toto, we're doing the lying leg curl. Standard lying leg curl, but we're not doing it in the standard way. We're doing very, very slow negatives of about 4 to 5 seconds. He's going to come to the top. He's going to hold for 1 second, and he's going to lower over 4 to 5 seconds really, really slowly. Now, the key to this is to make sure when you come to the top that you hold for 1 second and you set your hamstrings in place before you start to lower, because if you don't do that, the weight will just tend to drop really, really quickly, and you won't get that 4 to 5 second negative under control. This is a great technique for building mass into the hamstrings or any muscle group, because that 4 to 5 second negative will really, really split apart those muscle fibers, which have to be repaired and made bigger and stronger. Don't try to go as heavy as you would if you're just moving it up and down, because obviously this is a lot more difficult doing it this way. Remember, Toto's about 4 weeks out of the Arnold Classic, so he's still blasting away hard, and the hamstrings is one of the main muscle groups he's got to bring out for this show. Come on, Toto. Buddy George is right there behind him, spotting him, giving him a couple extra force reps. Great set. Okay, so now the second movement we're doing today, seated leg curl. And the technique that we're using on this is about 5 second peak contractions at the bottom. Now, you can see that Toto's actually bouncing a little bit at the bottom, because what I want him to do is not just hold the bottom in place, but to actively think about trying to squeeze back even further while he's holding. This is what I call hyper-contracting. There's a big difference between just holding the weight in place and actually keep pulling harder and harder when you get into the contracted position. Very, very difficult technique. Amazing for growth. Works really, really well on the seated leg curl especially. And again, you gotta have full round separated hamstrings at the pro level, especially in a show like the Arnold Classic, which is what Toto is going into. As you can see, he's pushing himself real far till total failure, till he can't bring it back anymore. Excellent set. Okay guys, so next we're going with a stiff leg deadlift variation that I like to use sometimes, using a cable rather than a barbell. The angle is very, very different from the barbell where you go straight up and down. Here, we're actually stepping back from the cable a couple of feet so that when he comes forward, he's stretching his body forward and he's sticking the rear end out to get that full stretch, and then he brings his body up in an angle, but he doesn't come all the way up straight. He keeps the tension on the hamstrings when he gets to the top by keeping a slight bend in the upper body. He's also holding the stretch. We're emphasizing the stretch in this movement for 4 seconds at the bottom, really pulling on the muscle. Whenever you stretch a muscle under tension, it actually damages the muscle fibers quite a bit, signals the body to grow. This is a very, very effective technique for growth. And the tension is constant with a cable as opposed to a barbell. Now, one other thing that he's doing here, which you can't see, but I made sure that he's doing, is that when he comes up to the top, he's pressing the balls of his feet into the plates. Now, by elevating the feet like this, you get better activation of the hamstrings, but to increase it even further, you push the balls of the feet down into the plates, and that will really make the hamstrings activate completely, take a lot of the lower back out of the movement, and you'll feel a better squeeze all the way from the bottom to the top. So if you're having trouble building the hamstrings and the standard deadlift is not getting it done, give this a try. It's a completely different feeling in the muscle. You get a different burn, a different type of stretch. The angle is completely different, so you'll get different muscle fibers as well. And as you can see, his hamstrings are separating really, really nicely at the bottom. And we're going for full separation. We're going for nice full hamstrings all the way from the glutes down to the knee, so he has that hang, as he is a classic competitor right now. So he's got a great upper body, a great lower body to go with it. Everything's got to be even and proportionate, and everything in great shape. It was a great set by Toto. Okay, so we're finishing up the workout here with a little detail work for the inner thighs, the adductor muscles. When you're very, very lean and defined, you can clearly see these muscles running down the inside of the thigh. And this is something that could definitely separate you from the other guys in your weight division or your class if you don't have it. Now, what we're doing on this one, obviously the first 3 movements, we were holding one of the positions for 4 to 5 seconds, but in this one, we're just kind of moving like a piston. Just in and out, and trying to get as much blood in there as possible. Trying to keep the reps over 20. Do a drop set. You want to keep the reps over 20, preferably more like 30, 35, or even 40, because the goal is to flush as much blood, oxygen, and nutrients into the damaged fibers so that we could begin the recovery process. Plus also, high reps do build muscle. A lot of people don't think they do, but they do, as long as you go to true failure. So again, this is a great way to finish up a hamstring workout, hitting the inner thighs to give you that detail and some more size in the inner thighs, because a lot of people don't do wide-legged movements. So if they don't do any adduction movements, the inner thighs can be kind of flat. So you can actually add muscle to the inner thigh, detail to the inner thigh with movements just like this. Very, very necessary movement for Toto to do right before a show, because he wants to be absolutely perfect for this show.
Merlin, you have any good questions this week?
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. I'll try to answer them kind of short. I'm still suffering from a cold. I got a sore throat, so I'm going to keep this short, which is not usual for me. First question is about training fasted in the morning. So going to the gym and doing your weight workout. And we're not talking about cardio. Your weight workout completely fasted. Is this of any benefit, or is there downfalls? What's your opinion? I am definitely not a fan of training fasted. Cardio fasted, great, burn a lot of fat. Training fasted, absolutely not. You know, when we go to the gym, training with weights, basically the premise is to build and maintain muscle. If you train fasted, you don't have any amino acids in the system, the body is going to pull these things from the muscle, which is pretty much working exactly against what you want to do. So you don't necessarily have to have, because a lot of people will say to me, oh, but I wake up so early in the morning and I got to go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning and I don't have time to eat. You don't have to have a big meal. Just have some whey isolate protein perhaps, maybe a small piece of fruit, something that digests really fast, really easy on the stomach, and that'll be fine before you work out. Definitely do not recommend to anybody that they go do weight training fasted. I know a lot of people think that it's benefit for keeping growth hormone up and all kinds of stuff, but no, if you can do fasted cardio, great, but I definitely don't recommend training fasted with weights in the morning.
Good ones you got.
Quick question from my good friend Max. You want to know about, since my heart attack, that I had my heart attack about a little over a year ago, has my view on the fitness industry changed? And if I can go back 10 or 20 years or something, what I've done differently. So, pretty much it hasn't really changed my view on the fitness industry, my heart attack personally. I don't think it really has anything to do, a lot of people do die early in this sport, and a lot of it is due to genetics, perhaps overuse of certain drugs. Again, there's also genetics involved. where there are certain people who could take tons of drugs and they have no problems whatsoever. There's some who take a very small amount of drugs and they develop problems very quickly. So I think genetics is the biggest factor that we have to look at. Then of course, you don't know whether a person is using recreational drugs. That's something, of course, I never did. But a lot of people in this lifestyle, it seems to go hand in hand for a lot of people who don't have stable lives and they do a lot of partying. So recreational drugs plus steroids and growth hormone, all kind of stuff, yeah, that can cause problems. But it hasn't changed my view of the fitness industry. It is what it is. There's certain risk involved, just like there is with any other sport. High-speed auto racing or any extreme sport. There's risks involved, and it is what it is. But as far as myself goes, I think that's really the more important part of the question, is whether there is anything that I would have done differently. There's nothing what I would have done differently in terms of my training. I mean, I remained a natural bodybuilder up until just, very recently when I started doing TRT, which is actually good for my heart. And so I didn't really have any risk factors. My diet was always clean, never did any drugs, recreational drugs. I was into the fitness lifestyle, and probably the fitness lifestyle that I led actually allowed me to survive my heart attack, because my heart attack was so severe that, I hope that stops. I'm gonna have another heart attack if that keeps going.
I know.
Anyway, so my heart attack was so severe that the doctor said that it would have killed the average person. They don't know how I survived it, and I had no damage in my heart. So the only thing that I would have done differently with this knowledge in retrospect is that I would have gone to probably had myself checked more. I'm very anti-doctor, which works against you sometimes. I've always been like, I'm fine, I don't need doctors. If I get the flu, I'll get over it, whatever. I would just never go to doctors. But I think that it's important, and I've said it before, I think it's important that you do occasionally go get checked out, get your blood work done, because I was the last person that anybody would think would have a heart attack. Nobody could believe it. And the way I lived my life, nobody could believe it. But obviously there was something in my genes, and it runs in my family now that I know. And perhaps if I would have had myself checked out 10 years ago, 20 years ago, a little bit more regularly, maybe there's something they would have found that could have said, Eric, you're leading your way in a bad direction for whatever reason. You have a genetic predisposition to heart problems, whether it's my cholesterol or whatever it was. And maybe there could have been some drugs or some things I could have done back then that would have prevented it from going as far as it did. So all I could say is that what I would have done differently is gone to the doctor more often, had checkups, had my blood work done, and make sure that I'm healthy, so that if there was anything going wrong, I could have nipped it in the bud rather than having to have and go through a heart attack.
Yeah, good question.